So I was fortunate enough to hear an evangelist who was one of my heroes. His name was Robert W. Taylor. I called him Bob. My son Travis called him Uncle Bob. That's how close we were. I became a Christian basically under his ministry about 37 years ago or so. And I remember Bob preached a sermon on becoming dissatisfied with status quo. And it basically changed my life. Because until I became dissatisfied, being status quo, being like everyone else, doing what everyone else did, nothing changed in my life. When I became dissatisfied, things started changing, okay? So if we were just to fast forward a little bit in my life, in my business, until I became dissatisfied with how other businesses ran and what they did, because I did work for a few other companies before I started McAfee. And I really wrote down, I took notes on what I was not going to do when I owned my own business. I didn't know how I was going to own my own business. I didn't know when I was going to own my own business, but I definitely knew I was not going to do things the way they did them. I was going to have a different culture, different systems in place, and just be a different kind of heating and air conditioning company. And that's exactly what we became. And then, like I said, if we fast forward rather a little bit further, I became dissatisfied with small profits. And I listened to some good people along the way. I had always wrote articles and coached. I mean, I'm talking about for the past 17 years, I've written articles and coached and did some cool stuff with breath of fresh air topics and word of the day topics. But Ken Goodrich really challenged me the most. And it wasn't that long ago, where he said he looked at some of our financials, and he said, "Greg, your prices are way too low." And even though I'm open to change and I have a lot of respect for Ken, the first thing I thought of was, Ken, you're in Las Vegas. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. You don't know our numbers. You don't know what it takes to do business here. That's my first thought, my first initial thought. So if I was counseling myself right there, if I was coaching myself right there, I would have said, Greg, you're thinking wrong. And that's exactly what I was doing. So until I became dissatisfied with low profits, until I became dissatisfied with low revenue, nothing was going to change. So I changed at that moment. And we looked at our prices. I've always negotiated well. I've always gotten good. I've always bought things at below what other people pay. I've been a good negotiator over the years. But now it was time to ramp it up a little bit. And we started ramping it up. And we went from like an average price of $8,500 for an install to, today it's a lot of them average over $18,000 for an install today. So I'll just tell you that if you're in the heating and air conditioning business and your numbers, you're not averaging over $18,000 for an install, you got a lot of room to work with. Okay. That's the positive side of things. And if you sit there and you go, that's just way too high, we couldn't charge that, I will say you're thinking wrong. Okay. Until you become dissatisfied with those numbers, nothing's going to change. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. Okay, welcome back to the Greg McAfee Show, where we discuss steps to successful entrepreneurship, how to take your business to new heights, and ultimately follow your dreams. Today, the topic is dissatisfied with average, hungry for more. What are you hungry for? Are you satisfied where you're at Well, until you become dissatisfied with where you're at, nothing's going to change. Most people settle. They tolerate average. I did for a while. They defend mediocrity. They defend where they're at. They make peace with status quo. Doesn't that sound funny to you? But they make peace with status quo. But the ones who break through, the ones who become dissatisfied with status quo, rise above. They have something different in them. They decide that normal is no longer normal for them. It's called dissatisfaction. And if you have that, consider it a gift if you use it right. The best thing that ever happened to me was becoming dissatisfied with status quo. That's when everything changed. That's when everything improved in my life, in my business, and everywhere else, if there are other places. All right, so I'm going to talk about this, and then I've got some bonus material. I don't think I've ever done this before, but as I was putting this together, I had so much content that I put some content together, and I'm calling it bonus material. We're going to go through it pretty fast at the end, but it's bonus material, and it will help you see that dissatisfaction can be the best thing you ever adopt in your life, the best thing you ever absorb, the best thing you ever follow, the best thing you ever believe in. We're going to talk about it. So number one, dissatisfied people refuse to accept this is just how it is. And I've coached a lot of people. I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs. And they just tend to think, especially second and third generation, this is just how it is. I want to say no, it's not how it is. You're making it how it is. If you want to change it, you've got to become dissatisfied with where you're at. First generation was satisfied. Second generation may have been satisfied. If they weren't satisfied, they didn't know what to do with it. Okay, you're third generation. What are you going to do about it? You're going to have to become dissatisfied. And I don't care what generation you are. I'm just using that because the more second and third generations I coach, I understand the concept of I grew up in this business and this is just how it is. No, it's not. And if you're starting a business, you don't know any different. You don't know any different. You're doing your best to what? Survive. You're doing your best to what? Get by. You're doing your best to generate enough income that if you're married, you can go to your spouse and say, look, I brought this in this week. They don't complain. They change. Dissatisfaction isn't an excuse. It's a reason to improve. It's the spark that lights the fire in your gut to make things happen and make them happen differently. Number two, they realize growth begins where comfort ends. Being content is okay in some things, but being stuck in the muck and numb to improvement is not. That's where dreams go to die. The dissatisfied get uncomfortable enough to make things happen. See, that's the thing. When you're dissatisfied, you've got to get uncomfortable enough to make things happen, because as long as you're comfortable, you're going to continue to do what you've always done to stay comfortable. See, I often say our only job here at McAfee is to keep other people comfortable. But for me and my team, I'm going to keep us uncomfortable. We've got to keep changing. We've got to keep thinking differently. We've got to become dissatisfied in how we did it last year in order to be better this year. And number three, they understand average won't build wealth or make an impact. You see, the status quo rarely pays off. If it does, it's minimal. Those who challenge it make bold decisions, take smarter risks, and build something real, and build something big. That's why they win. Winners have become dissatisfied with losing. Number 4, they control what they build and level up everything they touch. Whether it's faith, fitness, family, or finances. When they see an area that's weak in their life, they don't blame, they build. Over time, that adds up to a whole new life. It's a whole new way of living. It's a whole new way of doing business. If you're tired of status quo and you're tired of the way things going in your business and you're not making ends meet and you can't keep people and you can't grow, you have to become dissatisfied. When I became dissatisfied, I hired some of the best coaches. I invested a lot of money in some of the best coaches. They weren't necessarily in my industry. I don't need anybody in my industry. I need a good coach. I need someone to challenge me. Now, I'm in your industry, and if you want to hire me, I'll definitely work with you. But that's just how I thought. I thought differently. I hired someone who was the #1 realtor in Ohio. I thought if someone can be the #1 realtor in the state of Ohio, I want to meet them, I want to work with them, and I want them to coach me because I want to be #1. I like being #1. They see an area that's weak and they don't blame, they build. Over time, that adds up to a whole new life. All right. Number 5, they're grounded because they've seen the gap and they've crossed it. They've been in good enough and realized it wasn't good at all. They were comfortable in good enough, but it wasn't good at all. Once you get ahead and you look back, you go, why in the world did we stay in that rut? I have looked back at those numbers I talked about earlier. For years, we were 8,500 average. Oh, we were selling. No wonder we were selling. Guess what? As I raised it from 8,500 to 10,500, my closing ratio improved. This is interesting. As I raised it from 10.5 to 12.5, our closing ratio improved. Now, I sat down with my sales team, my comfort advisors, what we call them in the HVAC industry, and I basically spent many days talking about why we need to raise prices and why it's going to benefit us. See, as the leader, I had to buy in. If the leader doesn't buy in, nobody in the company's buying in. It's not going to work. It's going to fail. I already bought in. When someone told me you need to increase your prices, which will increase your profits, I bought in. I needed to figure out how to do it. How was I going to do it for Dayton, Ohio? And then I figured it out, and I did it. Okay? So, I was in good enough for a long time. And I realized it wasn't good at all. And then I had to get out of good enough and continue to strive for better and best. And that's actually, if you think about it, if you know our company, we don't do good, better, best. We do better and best. We tell the customer they need the best, but if they want better, they can drop back a notch. There is no good. There's no good at McAfee. Unless they're selling their house in 2 weeks, we could possibly find a good, but it's not in our lineup. The sales team has to get with me to price it. There's only better and best. For all my competition out there, now you know. They already knew. Trust me. Okay. So, the most successful people aren't born driven. I really was not born driven. but I just got tired of watching others drive and decided to learn how to do it. Think about that. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some quotes. I'm going to give you a few quotes that I wrote this week on this topic. And then I want you to apply. This is not the bonus section, by the way. This is quotes. These are Greg McAfee quotes on dissatisfaction. So I want you to know this. Growth starts the moment you get fed up with the way things are going. That's the only place growth starts. You can't grow until you become dissatisfied with where you're at. Number 2, the most successful business owners weren't satisfied with good enough. They demanded better. They changed it. They built it, and they made it happen. Number 3, the best thing that ever happened to me was becoming dissatisfied. That's when everything changed. Changed my whole life. Number 4, your business won't grow until you do. Growth always begins with dissatisfaction. And until the owner becomes dissatisfied, the entire company will keep going down the same path. All right, here's some bonus. Dissatisfied with average, hungry for more. I'm going to drive this home until you become dissatisfied and you change your life and you change your business. And you can say, this is the best podcast in the world, and it's free. By the way, if you like it, hit that like button, please. Hit that like button, pound it, hit it, leave me a message. Tell me what you're doing in your life to become dissatisfied and change. All right, here's some bonus. And then I've actually got another bonus. This is so good. Stay tuned. Most people stay stuck because they make peace with being average. Winners get fed up with average and do something about it. That's a bonus. The status quo is comfort, and comfort kills progress. If you're not improving, you're declining. Period. They often said, and I teach, if you're coasting, you're going downhill. Number 3, dissatisfaction is a gift. It's your internal alarm clock telling you this ain't it. Something is better. You were made for better. Number 4, people who change their life don't wait on motivation. They use frustration as fuel. When you get frustrated enough, you will become dissatisfied with how things are going. You'll sit here and listen to this podcast and you go, yeah, that sounds really good, but I'm just not there yet. Well, when you get frustrated enough, you'll get there. How much frustration and how much money loss do you need to get dissatisfied with where you're at? All right, they don't whine about where they are. They get brutally honest, and then they go get to work. Dissatisfied people quit saying someday and start saying now. That's why they're more successful. That's why they're wealthier. That's why they're more grounded than most people. They also know this: if nothing changes, then nothing changes. You're going to be the same in 5 years if you don't change something today and you don't become dissatisfied to change it. They stop blaming and they start building. And then we've got, when you finally get sick of being sick, that's when real momentum kicks in. I hear people complain and complain and complain about, it's so hard to be in business today. It's so hard to make a profit. It's so hard to keep people. Well, when you become dissatisfied, then you will quit and being dissatisfied, and you will change. And trust me, they don't want pity. They want progress. They want results, not reasons. I don't need reasons Once I decide I'm dissatisfied with something and I change it, I move on. Being dissatisfied doesn't mean you're ungrateful at all. I don't want you to walk away here thinking if I become dissatisfied, I can become dissatisfied. And this is what Robert W. Taylor, Bob, preached about. You need to become dissatisfied in your Christian walk. You need to become dissatisfied in your life. You need to become dissatisfied as a spouse. You need to become dissatisfied as a dad, as a mom. You need to become dissatisfied as a business owner or a manager in order to improve and get better. The most successful people, they were once just like everybody else until they said, I'm not staying here. I'm dissatisfied with where I'm at, and I'm going to make a change. The second we accept average, we've put a ceiling on our success. And I am not going to cap my success. My success is unlimited. I believe that. I've proven that. Now, we're getting to the end here. We're getting to the end. My phone's blowing up. Okay. So I'm going to end with this. I have become dissatisfied, and this happened a while back. It didn't happen today. It happened a while back. But I had to become dissatisfied with it. I became dissatisfied with what other people think. I don't care what other people think. So this was our 35th year in business, my wife and I. If you listen to the podcast, in 1990, we got married, we bought a home, and we started McAfee. So every year's an anniversary for our wedding anniversary and for our business anniversary. And one year, I think it was 10 years ago, on the 25th anniversary, we got matching Rolexes because we could. And I stroked a check. And it's engraved on the bottom of the Rolex watch, his and hers. It says, celebrating 25 years of marriage and 25 years of business. So, I've always bought GM. I bought Fords too. I bought some really cool Ford trucks, which now I passed them down to my sales team. And they're still newer. They're 5 to 7 years old, but we keep them nice. They look brand new. But lately I've always bought GMC Denali's rather than Cadillacs, because to some, a GMC Denali is just a GM product. That's all it is. It's a truck. It's the closest thing you can get to a Cadillac if you're a Cadillac kind of person. But I've always bought GMC Denali's so people wouldn't say, oh, he's got a Cadillac, he's making too much money, especially employees. For some reason, employees frown upon the owner of the company getting something extremely nice. And I don't know why. Because if they're getting something extremely nice, especially if they're stroking a check for it and not going into debt, that means the business is strong, the business is healthy, and they have some, quote, job security. They have a job every day. The company's able to write paychecks every week or two, and it's healthy. But sometimes we as owners, we hide the Rolex watch. I had someone, before I owned a Rolex, before I even thought I could own a Rolex, a friend of mine owned a Rolex, and he owns today a very large landscaping company. But he showed me his Rolex, and it was green because he's in landscaping, green face. And here's what he said: "Don't tell anybody." I thought then, we have to hide success? No, we don't, because I don't care what people think anymore. Okay, I don't care what people think. Now, what what I'm going to tell you about what I bought. I'm not driving it to work right now, but I own it. And someone from McAfee is going to watch this podcast and know what I bought. So a few months ago, I ordered this for our 35th wedding anniversary, 35th business anniversary. It's a 2025 Cadillac Escalade V. So Escalades are nice, but it's not just an Escalade, it's a V. Now, excuse me, let me tell you more about this real quick. And this is a little humorous, so bear with me. I don't get into much humor. I love humor, but the podcast is extremely serious, and it's about growing business. And so a 2025 Cadillac Escalade V isn't just a luxury SUV. It's a street-commanding beast wrapped in leather and tech that roars like a lion in a tuxedo. Now here's the fun breakdown. Under the hood's a supercharged 6.2-liter V8, pumps out a ridiculous 682 horsepower, making this luxury family hauler the drag race Mustang for the fun, and it wins. It's basically an American muscle car wearing a Rolex. It goes 0 to 60 in just under 4.4 seconds. That's not just fast for an SUV, that's fast, period. Your passengers won't know if they're in an Escalade or a rocket ship headed to Whoa-a-ville. And if looks could kill, the blacked out grille, which I ordered special, the Onyx package, it's aggressive, V badging, quad exhaust tips, and 22-inch wheels that look like they belong on a concept car. It's not your neighbor's driveway. It says, I go to board meetings, but I'll burn rubber along the way if I feel like it. It's got some cool cabin vibes. It's like a 5-star penthouse on wheels, 38-inch of OLED screens, curve across the dash like a sci-fi command center, heated, cooled, massaging seats, and of course, AKG studio sound system with 36 speakers. Yes, 36 speakers. The drive modes, well, it comes in normal, sport, and V mode, which is like an Escalade alter ego. It firms the suspension, it sharpens the throttle, and it releases the kraken from the exhaust, and it sounds good. And I have had many muscle cars, and this thing sounds good. And it's a bonus that the exhaust is legally loud. Fire it up in the neighborhood, and they know you're awake. Of course, I leave my house at like 4:45, so I don't know if I'd want to do that. But when I hit the gas, it sounds like Thor just slammed his hammer into the pavement. And it will fly, man. All right, in short, this 2025 Escalade V is what happens when a luxury yacht gets jealous of a jet fighter and it decides to become one. You want to turn some heads, make a statement, and smile every time you start the engine? This is it. And it's a lot of fun. And I'm glad I got to share it with you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And yes, I was able to stroke a check for it because I would not go in debt. And with interest rates the way they are, they would have to be below 4% before I would finance. So, I will say, without being smart, or I am blessed. I have worked hard. I don't deserve anything, but I've earned it. My wife and I have earned it. She's paid the price of long, long hours over the years. She's paid the price of me getting home at 11 o'clock instead of dinner time and never complained. We're having fun right now, and it is fun, and I'm not ashamed of it. You know why? Because I don't care. I just bought a t-shirt the other day. It says, "Oh, I understand, but I don't care." Now, you got to take that the right way, but I see fun in that. So, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to push that like button, please, and subscribe. You can also support this podcast by rating and reviewing on iTunes or your preferred listening platform. You now know this is a fun podcast. I have humor. Maybe it's not for everyone, but it's my kind of humor. Keep listening. I'll do my best to keep challenging you. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Greg McAfee Show. No spaces, no underscores, just tire burning marks. Be sure to tune in next week. I'll do my best to keep challenging you. Thanks for listening, and as always, carry on. God bless. Make this day the best day of your life because we're not promised tomorrow. I'll see you later.